13-point victory as that little piece of history is maintained. 13-plus point victories from then until now. UConn, an unbroken road of green lights, and again, confetti on the Huskies. In studio, Joe Musso alongside CBS Sports college hoops writer Chip Patterson. A season in the books, and what a season it was, but the end scene is maybe one we saw coming. UConn now back-to-back champions. We will get to the historic ramifications, but the second half, exactly what we talked about at halftime. That patented surge that we've seen all tournament long out of these Huskies. What stood out to you?
I think that number one, it's going to be that the way that this UConn team was able to revert back to its balance. Donovan Clingan gets into some foul trouble, really sees his impact limited. And look, Zach Edey had 37 points and 10 rebounds in this game. You would think that if Zach Edey has 37 points, if he has that 40 burger that we talked about, that would be a Purdue victory and not a double-digit loss. UConn is too good in too many different ways, and I think they showed that here in the second half. Little bit of contribution from everyone. Tristan Newton leading the way. You needed your stars to be stars. That's where Newton, Spencer, Stephon Castle, who's had a really, really good Final Four, all stepped up. If you were to do a draft of all the players that were on the floor tonight, you might take Zach Edey, the leading scorer for both teams, first, but the next players, the next 5 players, and maybe even the next 6 players, if you include Samson Johnson, would all be from the Huskies, and I think that was incredibly evident. There were moments where Purdue could have gotten back in this game with something that they do well, which is shooting the three-pointer. Just 7 attempts from behind the arc in this game, just 1 made three-pointer. I think that UConn had an incredible plan to be able to slow down Purdue and its uber-efficient offense, and I think that UConn had more answers than Purdue when their star center, Donovan Clingan, was taken out of the game for a little bit. And so you tip your hat to the Huskies, who have put together the point differential that we haven't seen in any NCAA tournament run. They put together dominance throughout this entire season. Dan Hurley said we make a hard tournament look easy, and that has been rolling around in my skull for the last week. And it is because they do all of the small things well. You have to be excellent at everything you do on the basketball court. That is what UConn has done. It's what they did in this championship. It's what they did in this tournament.
You coach them hard and you get the results, and here is the result. The best point differential in tournament history. Not just wins, not just back-to-back, dominant and decisive in the way that they dismantled each and every comer, Chip Patterson. Sometimes it's hard in real time to know what you're seeing. What we were seeing here is historical greatness, and you could frame it around some of those numbers, but how do you characterize the means by which they've gone about their business over this last 12-game stretch? 13-plus points. They do it again here with a 15-point win. You knew it was coming, and still it comes. How do you put into words the way that they won?
Culture and identity. Just the idea that they know who they are. Dan Hurley coaches hard. He asks a lot from these players. You always hear from the greats, and we're talking the capital G greats, that practices are harder than games. And with the UConn Huskies, I truly believe that's the case, because you can go all the way down the bench and you just see a total locked in to being just nails on defense and making life difficult. Everyone's diving for loose balls, getting active hands to try to make things difficult. This is not a one-trick pony. I mean, this is a full arsenal of weapons, not just in the different players who can contribute, but the different ways that they can make life difficult for you. So I just think that UConn knows what it is as a program, thanks to its future Hall of Fame head coach, Dan Hurley. And make no doubt about it. I mean, back-to-back national championships. Dan Hurley is going into the Hall of Fame. Not tomorrow, but one day he will be in the Hall of Fame. You see here, it wasn't just that they tied the record of most wins by 13-plus points last year, then to do it again. That is 12 consecutive NCAA tournament wins by 13 points or more. I just think that you don't get that in the modern era with a roster. By the way, they lost 3 of their top 6 scorers. 2 of them were NBA draft picks in the top 40 of the NBA draft, and the other one was Adama Sanogo, the most outstanding player in last year's tournament run. You bring in Cam Spencer from Rutgers. You sign Stephon Castle out of high school. You empower the newcomers. You help the younger players develop. Tristan Newton takes another step. Donovan Clingan, he was only averaging like 12 minutes a game last year. He emerges with another step. And there's one more thing about this UConn team that comes back to culture and identity, because I heard coaches all across the country complain about how we weren't the same team when this. Well, this guy was missing. Well, hey, NCAA tournament committee, you got to treat us differently when this guy was missing. Cam Spencer missed time. Donovan Clingan missed time. I mean, stars on this team missed 3, 4, 5 games, and you never, ever heard Dan Hurley complain, and you never ever saw UConn waver in their excellence from the start of the season all the way to the end.
It was the personification of total sum of the parts. That's what it was all season. That's what it was in the tournament. When you add that up, it was greater than the unstoppable force on the other side in this one. National title games won by 15-plus points in back-to-back seasons. That's what we just saw. Dominate this year, dominate last year. Doesn't matter who you're facing in that title game. A 15-plus point victory in back-to-back seasons. It's the first time that's happened since Lou Alcindor. The previously named Lou Alcindor. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 69 through 67. Those were decisive wins in championship moments. We haven't seen what we just saw over these 2 tournament stretches. It was simply fantastic. We do need to offer further thought, or maybe further explore the strategy laid out by Purdue in this specific game. You offered the number already. 1 of 7 from 3. They made 1 3-pointer. They only attempted 7. The last time Purdue attempted less than 8 3-pointers, 2015. It's been 330 consecutive games jacking up 8 or more. Why in this game did this happen?
Oh, because of UConn's defense. I mean, this is exactly what the Huskies were meant to do. And we first saw it against Alabama, where they knew they had to chase Alabama off the 3-point line. And they built this team and this defense that we want to chase you off the 3-pointers with our athleticism on the perimeter. I mean, Tristan Newton, their point guard, is 6'5", which I understand in the NBA, they tell me, is a little bit more common. But certainly here, that is a big point guard to be able to deal with at the college level. Cam Spencer, another athletic player, very active hands. Stephon Castle, 6'6", very active hands. And just the way that they're able to be so disruptive, I think that made life uncomfortable for these shooters. They also decided how they were going to play Zach Edey, and that is to let Edey eat. I mean, Zach Edey had 25 field goal attempts in this game, made 15 of them, 37 points in 39 minutes, as I mentioned earlier. But that is the calculus that Dan Hurley and this coaching staff said. All right, we're going to let Edey have it, because what other teams have done is that they overcommit to stopping Edey, and that left shooters open. Purdue had the 2nd best 3-point shooting percentage in the entire country this season, and yet they were 1 for 7 in this game. That happens because UConn knew Edey might get his, but if we can stop the threes, then we can really slow this team down. And I think that it's very disappointing for Edey, very disappointing for Matt Painter, who I think is one of the brightest offensive minds in the college game, that we weren't able to see enough of a pivot, that we weren't able to see enough adjustments. Or maybe that speaks to the greatness of UConn in this spot, because Purdue could not do anything close to what it was able to do in the regular season, and really until this point, outside of Zach Edey's dominance inside.
You talked about it in the lead-up. One team that has different ways to beat you, another that really can only get you one way, and they get caught chasing that one way. It is, in many ways, the greatest season of Purdue basketball history.
Yeah.
The greatest player in Purdue basketball history. There are things to be celebrated for the Boilermakers. Obviously, this is not the moment that you want to reflect on those sort of things, but we can sit here and do so. What is Zach Edey's legacy meant to this program specifically?
I think that Zach Edey is already going to go down as a legendary player who was able to take Purdue to places that it had not been and smash narratives that the Boilermakers can't get it done. I mean, Matt Painter, prior to this Final Four, had more, more wins in the NCAA tournament without a Final Four appearance. Matt Painter, had more NCAA tournament appearances without being able to advance far. Matt Painter had lost a double-digit seed after double-digit seed in recent years. And when you throw that 16 seed upset of Fairleigh Dickinson last season on top of that, that only strengthened the narrative. And so what Zach Edey was able to do is he was able to say, get on my back, boys, because we are going to run through walls. And I think that Purdue has done so much that, you're right, should be celebrated. Matt Painter had not been able to get Purdue to a national championship game.
Lost to a 16.
Like, this is
a couple sleeps ago, you know?